If you're the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, you know having a trusted partner makes all the difference. That's why, hands down, you count on Grainger for auto reordering. With on-time restocks, your team will have the cut-resistant gloves they need at the start of their shift. And you can end your day knowing they've got safety well in hand. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace.
Last year, I went through many different life changes. I needed to take a pause and examine how I was feeling in the inside to better show up for the ones who need me to be my best version of myself.
When you're navigating life's changes, Talkspace can help. Talkspace is the #1 rated online therapy, bringing you professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatry providers that you can access anytime, anywhere.
Living a busy life, navigating a long-distance relationship, becoming a first-step father, Talkspace made all of those journeys possible. I could speak with my therapist in the office. I could speak with my therapist in the comfort of my home. I was never alone.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
And away we go. Episode 1251 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. It is 2.2.26. The 4-year anniversary of 2.2.22. The 4-year anniversary of the official announcement of Commanders as the new name for the NFL team that started as the Boston Braves, then became the Boston Redskins, then became the Washington Redskins, and then became the Washington football team. Who could forget the high energy, high production value, all-time great way in which the name Commanders was officially announced? Let's go back to February 2nd, 2022, what the team branded as 2.2.22. The Today Show on NBC, anchor and Washington fan Craig Melvin, along with then Washington interior defensive lineman Jonathan Allen, then team president Jason Wright, and then senior advisor to Wright, Doug Williams. All 4 guys were seated in chairs on the field in an empty FedEx Field, now Northwest Stadium, on a freezing cold day in the Washington, D.C. area. Craig asked Jason a question, and then Jason gave Doug the honors.
Let's not make folks wait. Let's not drag it out, Jason. What is the new team name?
Doug, what is it?
We are the Commanders.
We are the Commanders.
The Commanders. The Washington Commanders.
That's right.
Oh, wow. You didn't waste any time there.
There it is.
And there it is. Happy 2.2.22 day. Boy, 4 full years since the announcement of the name Commanders. What wonderful unifying memories we have with that name from these last 4 years, right? Hello and welcome to this Monday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Great to have you with us on what is the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. Next segment, a conversation with my good friend Kevin Sheehan, the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast, about the state of the Washington Commanders brand on this, the 4-year anniversary of 2.2.22. This issue of the brand is not going away. This still is a big deal for a lot of people, understandably so. And so Kevin and I are going to examine where we are with this, including the likelihood of a uniform change, the potential for a logo change, and how possible another name change is. Remember, Commanders managing partner Josh Harris multiple times has said that the team is sticking with the name Commanders. By the way, Kevin will be back on this podcast in the coming days to talk actual Commanders football with a focus on the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator changes. But I did want to spend some time with him on an issue about which both he and I are passionate, the brand of our football team. And we'll be approaching the issue from both the standpoint of the fans and the standpoint of the team. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Wizards, and college basketball. An amazing win for the Caps on Saturday evening in their lone game over the weekend. A 4-3 overtime win over the Carolina Hurricanes at Capital One Arena. The Caps were missing a number of players. The Caps were facing the Metropolitan Division-leading Hurricanes. The Caps in the second period were down 3-0, and yet the Caps won the game. Our rebuilding and tanking Wizards, they over the weekend went 1-1. Friday night, a 142-111 loss to the Los Angeles Lakers at Capital One Arena. Sunday evening, a 116-112 win over the Sacramento Kings at Capital One Arena in a game that quite possibly neither team wanted to win. I'll explain. And we in college basketball over the weekend had losses for Maryland, Virginia Tech, and George Washington, but wins for Georgetown, number 17 Virginia, George Mason, and VCU. Another embarrassing loss for Maryland, a 93-63 loss to number 12 Purdue at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland on Sunday afternoon. Worst loss ever for Maryland at Xfinity Center. I'll react to that and to the return of the Turge, the University of Missouri-Kansas City, UMKC. It on Sunday at noon announced the hiring of former Maryland head coach Mark Turgeon as Kansas City head coach. Before we get to feedback, some Commanders news. So it now is official. Durante Jones is the team's defensive coordinator. The Commanders this past Friday morning officially announced having hired Jones as defensive coordinator. Meantime, reports on Saturday that 3 assistant coaches are out. Assistant linebackers coach / pass rush specialist Ryan Kerrigan, assistant defensive line coach Sharif Floyd, and player development coach Pete O'Negan. This off reports this past Thursday morning that Commanders defensive pass game coordinator Jason Simmons was leaving to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the change for the Commanders defensive coaching staff is not just about defensive coordinator. There's a lot more happening here, and I am here for it. And I'm guessing that most of you are here for it, of how bad the defense has been over Dan Quinn's 2 seasons as the team's head coach. But I again go back to this narrative of him being hired as the team's head coach in February 2024, the narrative that he had put together a great coaching staff. Look, offensively, yes. Defensively, no. The defensive coaching staff is being gutted after just 2 seasons. Also, we on Friday afternoon had reports that the Denver Broncos have requested to interview Commanders assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson for the Broncos offensive coordinator job. Something else to be aware of from the weekend, reports on Friday afternoon that the NFL on Friday informed teams that the league is projecting a salary cap for the 2026-2027 league year in the range of $301.2 million to $305.7 million per club. That would represent yet another massive jump in the cap, which continues to skyrocket. The cap for the 2025-2026 league year was $279.2 million per club. So from $279.2 to at least $301.2 in just 1 year. I mean, think about that. You know, the cap as recently as the 2023-2024 league year was $224.8 million. So from $224.8 million to at least $301.2 million in just 3 years. NFL business is booming. And specific to the Commanders, when we talk about them potentially keeping interior defensive lineman Daron Payne for the 2026 season, despite a cap hit of $27.95 million per overthecap.com, part of the calculus is, hey, that cap hit is not as bad as it sounds, given that the cap is soaring. As I've been saying for years about NFL contracts, today's overpay is tomorrow's bargain. And then there is this. Josh Harris, Dan Snyder, and Joe Gibbs appearing in the Epstein files. That is not something that I ever expected to say, but there is very important context to understand. So, the Justice Department this past Friday released many more records from its investigative files on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, this via the Epstein Files Transparency Act. An astounding 3 million pages of documents were released this past Friday. That is something. 3 million pages. Multiple NFL owners came up in the documents. For instance, New York Giants Executive Vice President and Chairman of the Board, Steve Tisch. His name appears at least 440 times among the documents released on Friday. And Epstein, per the documents, connected Tisch with numerous women. That is concerning. But regarding Josh Harris, his correspondence with Epstein was through assistants and was about Epstein wanting to arrange business meetings with Harris, who made his fortune in private equity, co-founded the firm Apollo Global Management in 1990. Said a spokesperson for Josh Harris on Friday, quote, Josh Harris never had an independent relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Harris sought to prevent Epstein's attempts to develop a corporate relationship with Apollo. As these emails indicate, Harris sought to avoid meeting with Epstein, canceling meetings, and having others return his calls. End quote. Jeffrey Epstein was a horrible person. What he did was horrible. There, to me, are so many questions about him and his situation. Why did he do what he did? Who was he working for / associated with? How did he make his fortune? You know, it is not clear how this guy got so rich. How truly did he die? He, in August 2019, while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges, was found dead in his jail cell. His death has been ruled a suicide, but the circumstances of his death are really sketchy. So there is all of this with Jeffrey Epstein, but just because a person's name comes up in the millions of documents that constitute the Epstein files doesn't mean that the person is guilty of any wrongdoing. You know, there's a page from the documents that includes the mention of the man from whom Josh Harris bought the Commanders, Dan Snyder, and includes the mention of the greatest head coach in franchise history and in Washington, D.C. sports history, Joe Gibbs. Dan Snyder and Joe Gibbs are in the Epstein files. The line from the document is, quote, Joe Gibbs is so nice, but Dan Snyder is a pig. End quote. Yeah, that's the line. Quote, Joe Gibbs is so nice, but Dan Snyder is a pig. End quote. But we have zero certainty regarding the context in which this line occurs, and the line could mean so many things and could be about so many things. To be clear, there is zero indication that Dan Snyder is guilty of any wrongdoing or that Joe Gibbs is guilty of any wrongdoing, just as there is zero indication that Josh Harris is guilty of any wrongdoing. A person's name can come up in these files for all kinds of reasons. I am not a lawyer, trust me on that, but the reason that investigative files and grand jury proceedings so often are not released is because these files and proceedings often contain unproven and untrue accusations. But in the cases of Josh Harris, Dan Snyder, and Joe Gibbs, they're not even being accused of anything. And I did want to address that and make that clear because Harris, Snyder, and Gibbs coming up in the Epstein files was a bit of a thing over the weekend. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Speaking of Joe Gibbs, email from Robert Delaney off our conversation on Friday's show, episode 1250, with legendary sports writer Richard Justice, who served as a Washington Redskins beat reporter and columnist and working for the Washington Post from February 1986 to July 2000. Richard was the Post beat reporter for the Skins for their 1991 Super Bowl championship season. Writes Robert, earlier last week, you brought up a question whether Joe Gibbs would favor his Super Bowl or NASCAR titles. After listening to Richard Justice, I think the answer is clear. It would be his NASCAR titles. He got to earn his NASCAR titles with his family. Thank you for the email, Robert. On last Thursday's show, episode 1249, engaged in some scheduled fun in asking what means more to Joe Gibbs, him having won 3 Super Bowls as Redskins head coach, or him having won 5 NASCAR Cup Series championships as owner and founder of Joe Gibbs Racing. And I said that I think that it's very likely that Gibbs's answer would be having won 5 NASCAR Cup Series championships. A, more titles, 5 versus 3. B, he has run Joe Gibbs Racing for a lot longer than he was Redskins head coach. Joe Gibbs Racing started in 1992. And C, Joe Gibbs Racing has been much more of a family affair for Gibbs than him serving as Redskins head coach. Well, the most powerful portion of our conversation with Richard Justice was this on Joe Gibbs and his family. Here you go.
I'm late there. I'm there late one day, and Joe comes in I once walked into his office when you could wander around, open the door to his office, and all I saw was a sofa with a pillow and a blanket on it and a Bible that was open. And I said to him later, I said, I was sneaking around and looked in your office and told him what I had seen. I said, what were you, the Bible was open. I said, what were you reading? He said, I'm reading about King David, a guy that was, the world saw as wealthy, but he was completely poor. And he goes, that's how I feel about this job sometimes. Like he told me one night, Coy, his youngest son, he goes, I went to kiss Coy goodnight. And I looked down and there's this 6'2", 210-pound thing with a beard and a linebacker. And he said, I started to cry. I had missed it all. And that was the price he paid. And then when he left, I went with him to one of Coy's games at Stanford. And he was going to get that time back. And the last time I talked to him after JD was at the end of his life. He had early onset Alzheimer's, his oldest son, who was the perfect kid. And he says, I said, I just want to see how you're doing. And he says, I know what a broken heart is now. I'll never go to bed happy another night of my life. And he goes, I know God's hand is in this, but I can't see it. And I told Joe's secretary later, I said, that's the saddest man I've ever been around. I haven't spoken to him since Coy died. So it's, I think he's channeled it to the grandkids.
That right there was some heavy stuff from Richard Justice on Joe Gibbs. His son, J.D. Gibbs, died in January 2019, was just 49 years old. How great was Richard on this past Friday's show? So good. Email from Rick Proctor on the state of the Commanders roster. Writes Rick, hey, Al, trust all is well. I've been watching the playoffs, just thinking, who dat? Look like dat? Lot of work to do. True dat. DQ and AP must know dat, don't they? True dat. Hope dat. Thank you for the email, Rick. And I have no disagreement with that. Nova Fireplace and Stove is Northern Virginia's go-to expert for fireplaces. Transform the look and feel of your home and increase its value by visiting Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or by visiting NovaFireplaceandStove.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Nova Fireplace and Stove will make your fireplace elite. And here's what else Nova Fireplace and Stove offers: gas fireplace service and repair, chimney cleaning and brickwork repair, generator installation, panel replacements and water heater repairs, smoke detectors, security lights, and more. Nova Fireplace and Stove is a family-owned, fully licensed and insured company with over-the-top credentials, gas and electrical master's licenses, a Class A contractor's license, and a long list of 5-star reviews to back all of this up. Every job includes a free in-home estimate. And for listeners of the Al Galdi podcast, Nova Fireplace and Stove is offering $25 off any service. Just mention that Al Galdi sent you. Nova Fireplace and Stove only works in Northern Virginia and thus knows the homes, the codes, and the people. Your satisfaction is 100% guaranteed. Nova Fireplace and Stove in Woodbridge, Virginia, or NovaFireplaceandStove.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you for $25 off any service. Brand Finance. It this past December came out with the outlet's 2026 NFL Brand Equity Ranking. Guess where the Washington Commanders ranked? Yes, dead last, number 32 out of 32 NFL teams. Quote, the Washington Commanders suffer from significantly worse perception than any brand in the league, beset by unrelenting popular rejection since its inception in 2022. Our findings are corroborated by Brand Finance's annual report on the most valuable and strongest NFL brands, which ranks the value of the Commanders brand amongst the worst in the league. Countless obstacles contribute to the ongoing and insurmountable challenges plaguing a franchise that used to have one of the most beloved brands in all of sports. Those include 1. General antipathy toward the name and logo. 2. The brand's association to former owner Dan Snyder. 3. The brand's departure from and irrelevance to franchise heritage. 4. The name and logo being a permanent reminder of the 2020 to 2022 rebrand process that saw fan votes and suggestions go ignored. 5. Unanswered questions over why so much of the former Redskins brand was discarded. 6. And distaste surrounding the contextual connotations and insensitivity of rebranding to Commanders of all names, end quote. So, what is the state of the Washington Commanders brand on this, the 4-year anniversary of the official announcement of that brand? February 2nd, 2022, with the team branded as 2.2.22. That now is 4 years ago. 4 years. A presidential term. If the Commanders brand was up for re-election, how would the brand do? I'll hang up and take your answer off the air. In the meantime, it is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast a good friend, Kevin Sheehan, the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast and the host of the Kevin Sheehan Show, weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the Team 980. You can follow Kevin on X at Kevin Sheehan DC. Kevin is joining us for the first of 2 conversations in the coming days. We, in our next conversation, will go in-depth on the Commanders' coordinator changes, but we right now discuss the state of the Washington Commanders brand. Kevin, it is nice to talk to you. Happy 2.2.22 day. How are you?
It was one of our favorite days. I was so inspired by those that were involved in presenting the new brand. God, it was just a great show. What is it, Doug? It's the Commanders. If there were like approval ratings leading into this election, it would be like in the teens right now, the current brand. I mean, it would be. I really believe that maybe some of the loudest promoters of it are on social media, but they make up a very small fraction of the people that care about the team, or used to care about the team.
It's funny, Monday is the 4-year anniversary of the team officially announcing the new name of Commanders. Tuesday is the 1-year anniversary of Commanders managing partner Josh Harris at an end-of-season press conference saying that the team was sticking with the name Commanders. Specific to the name Commanders, the team's Renaissance 2024 season clearly brought us farther away from the team changing from that name. Did the team's disappointing 2025 season bring us closer to the team changing from that name?
I don't think so. I think that their plan, which they're sticking with, is to change the look, and go back to the old uniforms, the championship uniforms, minus the logo. I don't know why they can't include the logo. The logo was never an issue to anybody, but I still think, Al, the name is a league issue where the top revenue generating partners for the league just would not have it. Since that horse left the barn, there's no shoving it back in. And I think that's the problem. I mean, it obviously would be a home run for Josh Harris and company to go back to Redskins and, middle finger the rest of the, league in the country that has a problem with it. They understand their fan base. They know what the fan base used to be. But I just don't think it's in the cards. I think that a possibility is over. But I still think getting rid of the current is better than doing nothing. but it's not an easy answer in terms of what to go to if Redskins isn't the option.
Whatever gains were made with the name Commanders via the team's 2024 season, were those gains undone by the team's 2025 season?
Yeah, I'm not even sure the gains that were made were what they hoped that they would be. I mean, a year ago now, we're like, wow. And all of the people, and they're, I think, very much a minority, all of the people that said, just win and it'll be fine. I think they were proven wrong because there wasn't this incredible rush to buy season tickets, to buy, other than Jaden Daniels' jersey, to buy a lot of, stuff with Commanders on it. They sold out, I think, the majority of their games, but, even things like local television ratings, they weren't up. They were down. They were still in the bottom third of the league, at least through the first half of the season. John Orand from Puck, shared that with me during the season, and we talked about it. So imagine where they are now, after this season. So I don't know what their thinking is. I mean, I think anybody that thinks that they haven't understood since the moment they purchased the team, that this was a big hurdle, it was how to clear the hurdle. And I don't know that they've figured that out. And 12-5 and 2 playoff wins on the road and 60 minutes from the Super Bowl allowed them to kind of take the path of least resistance a year ago. And they're sticking with that. But I think for some, at least they'll look like the team we used to root for, more often than not in the coming years.
Yeah, the Redskins like alternate uniform that the Commanders introduced this past July 9th to overwhelming support. It sure seems like there's a good chance that the team this offseason makes that uniform the number one uniform moving forward. Like, there's no reason for the team not to do that.
It's going to. I feel very confident that it will. I think that there are league rules in terms of, how long it takes and swapping out all the old stuff. But I think that's going to become the norm. It won't include the logo, I don't think, on the helmet. I think they'll try to incorporate the logo into something, but not something that's front facing. We'll have the W on the helmets, but they'll still be called the Commanders for the foreseeable future. And for me, and I know you and I have talked about this so many times, I just think the best move would be to go back to Washington football team, Washington Football Club, and we all call them the Skins. We all call them the Burgundy and Gold. We all, whatever it is. And I don't know if that makes sense from a marketing and merchandising standpoint, because there are a lot of those people that would say, no, you have to have a name and it needs to be plural, all of those things. But for this fan base, I think it's a unique situation.
And going with Skins as the off-used nickname for the team without its name actually being Redskins could work. I mean, my wife is from Pittsburgh. People in Pittsburgh call the Pirates the Bucks as much, if not more, than people in Pittsburgh call the Pirates the Pirates. The problem, though, is this. So the Pirates embrace that nickname, Bucks. The Commanders almost certainly would not / could not embrace the nickname Skins, because doing so would be an endorsement of Redskins, right? Skins means Redskins. And if the team could officially endorse the nickname of Skins, then that would beg the question, hey, why can't the name just go back to being Redskins?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. I'm passionate about the issue like I've always been, but I have become a bit resigned to the reality that it's never going to be that. And to me, if it's not that, I don't have that same feel and detachment to certainly what they gave us in 2022. Winning or no winning, that never to me did I think that would make a difference with people my age, with longtime fans. I think, Al, from their standpoint, what would make sense to me, and I don't know if this is true, is if they just said, look, those people, people my age, older, 10, 15 years younger, the people that lived through the glory days and remember the glory days, and you were just a young buck during the glory days. But their lifetime value to us isn't anywhere near what the 17-year-old or 18-year-old or 12-year-old or 25-year-old's lifetime value is to us. We've got to go out and get them to become huge fans of the Commanders. And there would be something that makes sense about that. Those people are going to live much longer. And those people, those aged, young men, young boys, young girls, young women, in many cases, because the team's been so awful, they really haven't adopted the hometown team as their team. So there is that opportunity for them, and they care about the name less than we do.
That's true. Now, of course, a good and successful organization can and should appeal to people of all demographics. And when it comes to age, look, especially these days, people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s tend to have more disposable income than people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So from a business standpoint, it might actually make more financial sense for the Commanders to cater to older fans at least as much as the team caters to younger fans. We're talking with Kevin Sheehan, host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast, about the state of the Washington Commanders brand on this, the 4-year anniversary of 2.2.22. The rise of the spear. We in recent months have seen the Commanders incorporate a spear into the team's branding. The Commanders this past June 9th held their media day, which included taking a bunch of publicity photos of players. Among the photos, a photo of quarterback Jaden Daniels holding a spear in what looks like a dungeon or chamber. We had what legendary former Redskins cornerback and Pro Football Hall of Famer Darrell Green did during the Commanders' 25-24 walk-off loss to the Chicago Bears at Northwest Stadium on Monday Night Football this past October 13th. The Green during the game came out in his number 28 jersey and did a routine with a spear in front of fans. The Commanders this past October 27th in a post on X put out a graphic of receiver Terry McLaurin holding a spear. The Redskins, of course, in the 1960s had a helmet with a spear with a feather on each side of the helmet. What do you make of this increased usage of the spear?
I don't know. I mean, everybody asks you, everybody asks me about it. My answer is I have no idea. I have no idea. It would be great, but it is, Native American imagery. And I think that's something that they'd prefer to steer clear from. But I don't know that for sure. That would be nice, to have that back. But man, that's going back to way pre, this team becoming what it became really in the early 70s with George Allen, and the logo that's existed from 72 through, 22. Yeah. Or through 20, actually. Washington football team had the W, right?
Do you want to hear from Josh Harris on this issue of the Commanders brand?
We didn't get a postseason press conference this year, did we?
No, we did not.
When Bisciotti held his first press conference in like 3 or 4 years to talk about the Harbaugh, exit, he said, "I haven't talked to you guys because I let my football people talk to you." That's great. And I mean, in my owner, I don't need to hear from my owner except when he's accepting the Lombardi Trophy. That would be fine. But we have heard from the owner. We heard from him last year at the end of the season. We don't hear from him during the season, and he's smart. And we shouldn't hear from him. We shouldn't hear from the team president. Most people, unlike when Jason Wright was here, most people have no idea who Mark Klaus is. And that's the way it should be. The business team president guy. So they've gotten that message, and I think they've been really smart with that. People want to hear from the GM, the coach, and the players. But I don't know if he doesn't have an update on it, he just opens himself up to pissing people off again for a second consecutive year.
Yeah, Josh Harris is in a tough spot for sure. What I wonder is, would it make people feel better and or better understand where he's coming from if he at some point was transparent about what can and cannot be done with the name and logo, and if he acknowledged how many people have a problem with the current name?
It would help for us. For us, I think the majority of certainly past fans and current, if you added it all up, you take 100 people, put them in a room, I still think 70% care deeply about this issue, at minimum. Sometimes you wonder how attached to everything, because Snyder was so detached, in part because he was a recluse. Josh Harris isn't that. Mitchell Rales isn't that. Mark Ines certainly isn't that. I think they have a really good sense of it. Their strategy, I don't know. Would it help? Sure, it would help if he said, I understand how big of an issue this is to so many of you. I don't know if he would be able to explain why they can't, but it certainly would help. But any answer is not going to work for a lot of people. It's just like anything in this day and age. You and I talk about it all the time off the air. It's like, if you talk about certain things publicly, 50% of the people listening are going to hate you, So why even, delve into those waters?
The Josh Harris ownership group has made it clear that the team is not going back to the name Redskins. Now, the group has never publicly commented on the Redskins logo of the proud Native American warrior. I do think that coming back in some form, maybe as a patch, maybe via a retro uniform, is possible. And I'm basing that on things that I've been told. But with the name Redskins, just for the purpose of having some fun here, my take for years has been that the team not going back to the name Redskins is far more an NFL and NFL sponsors thing than it is a Josh Harris thing. And that if Harris got the green light from the league and its sponsors to go back to the name Redskins, he'd do so in a heartbeat. What do you think?
I think they would. I think they understand the hurt associated with what they acquired. They knew it would be, I think there were two things. When they acquired the team, they knew that they would have an instantaneous reaction positively to no more Snyder. And there's no doubt they benefited from that. The business plan he put together to attract the 20 plus limited partners that invested with him to pay the $6 billion price. Essentially, in terms of revenue, it's like number one on the list is Dan Snyder doesn't own the team anymore and people will come back and that'll give us a huge bump. But challenges and risks were the brand that stood for 80 plus years that is no longer there and the emotional detachment that a lot of longtime fans had.
Kevin Sheehan, host of the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast. Kevin, thanks, and we'll talk soon.
Always love coming on with you. We'll do it again soon.
All right. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. It has been a Washington, D.C. institution for decades. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group offers fierce advocacy on behalf of medical malpractice, birth injury, and personal injury victims. Led by the great Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group is focused on providing exceptional care and counsel for those who need such things the most. The Nace Law Group fights for what it believes in, you, your family, and your future. You with the Nace Law Group have an experienced advocate on your side. The Nace Law Group has secured millions of dollars in verdict and settlement amounts for clients to better enable them to care for themselves and their families. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com, and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. Well, the Washington Capitals on Monday night are beginning a stretch of 3 games in 4 days to conclude the pre-Olympics break portion of the team season of the 2025-2026 NHL regular season. Will pause from February 6th through the 24th to accommodate the Winter Olympics in Italy. First time that NHL players have participated in an Olympics since 2014. And the Caps are entering this stretch of 3 games in 4 days off the team's best win of the season. What a win for our Caps in their lone game over the weekend, a 4-3 overtime win over the Carolina Hurricanes at Capital One Arena on Saturday evening. The Caps were missing a number of players. The Caps were facing the Metropolitan Division leading Hurricanes. The Caps in the second period were down 3-0, and yet the Caps won the game. They end this regular season now are 27-22-7, good for 61 points, tied with the Columbus Blue Jackets for fourth place in the 8-team Metropolitan Division, though the Caps have played 2 more games than the Blue Jackets have played. But this 4-3 overtime win over the Hurricanes at Capital One Arena on Saturday evening was something. The Caps' goaltending situation was a mess. The Caps' number 1 goaltender, Logan Thompson, he for a second consecutive game was not available due to an upper body injury. The Caps' number 2 goaltender, Charlie Lindgren, he was not available due to a lower body injury that he suffered in the Caps' previous game, their 4-3 shootout win at the Detroit Red Wings this past Thursday night. The Caps on Saturday afternoon announced having put Lindgren on injured reserve. The Caps' starting goaltender for this overtime win over the Hurricanes on Saturday evening was Clay Stevenson. The Caps this past Thursday morning announced having recalled Stevenson from their AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears. And Stevenson, in what was his second career NHL regular season game, stopped 19 of the 22 shots on goal that he faced. Not bad. The Caps' number 2 goaltender for this game was Garen Bjorklund. The Caps on Saturday afternoon announced having recalled Garen Bjorklund from Hershey. You got all of that. Man, what a game just from a goaltending perspective for the Caps. We, during the post-game press conference of Caps head coach Spencer Carberry on Saturday night, had this exchange between Tom Galiti of NHL.com and Carberry.
What did you see in Clay and how he handled this situation? Obviously, he talked about not being happy with the third goal, but considering where you guys were, this was not playing the last game of last season where it didn't mean anything. This is a really meaningful game for you guys, and kind of stayed calm when it got to 3-0.
I thought he was excellent, and really tough circumstances. He gets thrown into the fire with what's going on a little bit. Like, this wasn't a scripted, hey, Clay, this is, very quick situation where all of a sudden you're going to start an important regular season game against one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I just thought his calmness, which I think is a staple of his, I don't think you can rattle Clay Stevenson, but to keep that game at 3. We just needed him to keep it at 3, and I told the guys that, and he did a phenomenal job of that. There wasn't a ton of action or a ton of high-danger chances, but he did face 3 or 4, and we needed him to make a big save, and he had a few moments that he stepped up for the guys and kept that game at 3-0, or even when it got to 3-1, 3-2, there were some moments in there where we needed to rely on him.
All right. Also, the Caps for this overtime win over the Hurricanes on Saturday evening were without so many other key players. Defenseman Martin Fehervary did not play due to a personal reason. Defenseman Matt Roy did not play for a third consecutive game due to a lower body injury, and the Caps on Saturday afternoon announced having put him on injured reserve. Forward Connor McMichael did not play due to an upper body injury. The Caps on Saturday afternoon announced having put him on injured reserve. Center Pierre-Luc Dubois remains out due to injuries to his abdominal and adductor muscles. He got injured in the Caps' 3-1 loss to the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena all the way back on October 31st. The Caps, for this overtime win over the Hurricanes on Saturday evening, had just one healthy scratch. Forward Bogdan Trineyev. The Caps on Saturday afternoon announced having recalled Bogdan Trineyev from Hershey. Again, you got all of that. The Caps overcame a 3-0 second period deficit. They won the rest of the game 4-0. How about this? The Caps won the puck possession battle despite facing a team in the Hurricanes known for being great at puck possession. The Caps had 42 shots on goal to the Hurricanes' 22. And per natural stat trick had 65 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Hurricanes' 48, including 17 5-on-5 high-danger shot attempts to the Hurricanes' 8. The Caps, in their depleted state, out-puck-possessed the Hurricanes, who are elite at puck possession, who are notorious for being so good at puck possession. 3 of the Caps' 4 goals came from centers, including the game-winning goal.
So sort of coming back in his own zone. Chikrin is out there a while. Ethan Frank is on now. He and Sorta, they got wheels. And it'll be John Carlson joining him here as Sorta trying to dangle at the blue line. Carlson picks it up. Sorta shooting. Save and a rebounding score! Cleaned out by Justin Sorta for the game-winning goal. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Carolina. Sorta in OT, the hero. The Capitals come all the way back.
Wow, what a game on that one. A little exchange back in the neutral zone, a couple of giveaways, and great job. Sort of gets in there, makes it all happen. What a perfect game for the Caps. And how about Clay Stevenson? How happy are they for him? And how happy is he right now? Big 2 points and 2 in a row.
His first NHL win, an overtime thriller, as Justin Sorda takes down the Canes.
John Walton and Ken Sabrin on the Washington Capitals radio network. What a moment that goal was. I was so pumped that the Caps got this win. The most improbable win for them so far this season. The best win for them so far this season. Caps second line center Justin Sorda, he scored the game-winning even-strength goal, 142 into overtime for his 12th goal in this regular season. He was number 2 on the Caps with 5 shots on goal. He was number 3 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 63.89. The Caps with Sorda on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 23 shot attempts versus allowing 13 shot attempts. So also, he was tied for number 2 on the Caps with 3 hits, did go just 3 and 9 on faceoffs. But Caps top line center Dylan Strome, he scored an even strength goal, 14:58 into the second period for his 16th goal in this regular season. Also, he went 15 and 7 on faceoffs. And Caps fourth line center Hendrix Lapierre, he scored an even strength goal, 7:52 into the second period for his second goal in this regular season. Very good production from Caps centers in this game. Also, really good game for Caps second line left wing Alexi Protas. He had 2 primary assists, giving him 18 assists in this regular season, and he was number 2 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 68.57. The Caps with Protas on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 24 shot attempts versus allowing 11 shot attempts. The Caps top line left wing Alex Ovechkin, he had no points, but did have 8 total shot attempts, including 3 shots on goal. The Caps went 2 for 2 on the penalty kill, did go 0 for 4 on the power play. But man, what a win for the Caps. You know, they had gone just 8-13-5 over their last 26 games, but now have back-to-back wins. So here was Spencer Carberry during his post-game press conference on Saturday night on his team overcoming a 3-0 second-period deficit, and then we'll hear a follow-up exchange between Caps insider Bailey Johnson of the Washington Post and Carberry.
I thought, and I felt like our group on the bench, in the locker room, in between both intermissions, felt really confident. We were playing great. And even though the score didn't reflect that, I thought all the things that we were doing, and the guys felt that too. So you never know. You believe that you're going to find a way to break through and put a few past Freddie, but what we were doing shift to shift was excellent. So there was a lot of belief in our room that we were going to find a way if we just kept with our game and stuck to it even through that third period and didn't. The one thing that I stressed to the group going into the third was sometimes when you're down 1, you really press. And I just didn't want us to just, get over aggressive. Next thing you know, you give them a 2-on-1 and it's in the back. Now you're down 2, and now it becomes a more significant challenge to come back from. And so I wanted us to just stay with it because I felt like we were going to get 1 or 2 goals in the third period.
What does it tell you about your group when you're missing the players you were missing tonight, that they're still able to find a way and get this one done?
Yeah, that's our locker room, and that's the Caps resiliency that I've grown accustomed to over the last couple of years. Of you can feel it. It feels a little bit different right now with our group. There's a focus to it. They understand what's at stake and where we're at, and I think there's a real, like, this is as important of a stretch as we've had this season. I don't know how to articulate it, but they know how important this is, and you can feel it inside of our game, shift to shift, our preparation, our meetings, and we need it. And they're the last few games, hopefully we can finish it and have that same type of focus and perform at the same level that we've seen the last couple of games.
All right, next up for the Caps are games on back-to-back nights. Home to the New York Islanders Monday night at 7, and at the Philadelphia Flyers Tuesday night at 7. Well, we have arrived at the week of the 2026 NBA trade deadline, which is this Thursday, February 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll see what the Washington Wizards do regarding that deadline. Plenty of possibilities in terms of both buying and selling for the Wizards as a rebuilding and tanking team. Buying with the idea of taking on a bad contract for draft capital. Selling with the idea of trading away, say, a Chris Middleton or a Marvin Bagley III. In the meantime, the Wizards over the weekend went 1-1. Friday night, a 142-111 loss to the Los Angeles Lakers at Capital One Arena. Sunday evening, a 116-112 win over the Sacramento Kings at Capital One Arena. The Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season now are 13-35, tied with the Brooklyn Nets for the fourth worst record in the NBA. The Kings for this regular season now are an NBA worst 12-39. This was an interesting weekend for the Wizards in terms of the tank. The loss to the Lakers on Friday night, the Wizards got destroyed. They trailed by at least 14 points for all of the second, third, and fourth quarters, so the Wizards' defense was terrible. They allowed the Lakers to score 142 points, go 14 for 33 on threes, and 38 for 52 on twos, and have 38 assists versus 17 turnovers. So the Wizards got shredded by Luka Doncic, who had a triple-double. He, in 30 minutes, 32 seconds as a starter, had 37 points, 13 assists, 11 rebounds, and 3 steals. He went 6 for 13 on threes and 7 for 8 on twos. Did commit 5 turnovers and did go just 5 for 7 on free throws. And then the win over the Kings on Sunday evening, the Wizards blew a 17-point second quarter lead, but overcame a 4-point fourth quarter deficit at 109-105 by ending the game on an 11-3 run. And they did this with solely reserves. Wizards head coach Brian Keefe did not play any of his starters at all in the fourth quarter. Keefe in the fourth quarter played only reserves, including Will Riley, who in playing for all 12 minutes in the fourth quarter had 12 points. Riley for the game in 30-10 off the bench had 18 points, 6 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards and 6 assists versus 1 turnover. He went 4 for 8 on threes, just 2 for 7 on twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. But Brian Keefe in the fourth quarter against a bad team in the Kings playing only reserves. That may have been the most blatant example of tanking by our Wizards yet, but it did not work. The Wizards won. The Kings were without multiple key players, including Domantas Sabonis, Russell Westbrook, yes, the former Wizard, and Keegan Murray. But the Wizards were without a number of key guys. Alex Sarr did not play due to right calf soreness. Trey Johnson did not play for a second consecutive game due to a left ankle sprain. Trae Young did not play for a 12th time in 12 games since being acquired by the Wizards via trade on January 9th. He's not playing due to a right knee sprain and a right quadriceps contusion. Tristan Vukcevic was not available for a 9th consecutive game. He, for a 7th consecutive game, was listed as dealing with a left hamstring strain. He, for the first 2 games, was listed as being out due to left knee soreness. And Cam Whitmore is done for the season. The Wizards on January 15th announced that he had started the recovery process for a diagnosed venous condition and would miss the remainder of the season. However, back for the Wizards on Sunday evening were 2 trade chips in Marvin Bagley III and Chris Middleton. Bagley returned from a 5-game absence. He, for the first game, was not available due to illness. He, for the next 4 games, was not available due to a thoracic strain. He, in 1843 as a starter, had 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists versus no turnovers. He went 1 for 1 on threes and 6 for 6 on twos. Did not attempt a free throw. Middleton returned from a 1-game absence caused by right knee injury management. Next up for the Wizards, home to the New York Knicks, Tuesday night at 7. Let's talk college basketball. Here's how bad Maryland's season has gotten. The Terrapins, over their last 2 games, have suffered the program's worst Big Ten regular season or postseason loss since joining the conference beginning with the 2014-2015 season, and have suffered the program's worst loss ever at Xfinity Center, which opened in October 2002. January 24th, a 91-48 loss at then number 10 Michigan State. Maryland, in losing by 43 points, suffered its worst Big Ten regular season or postseason loss since joining the conference. And Sunday afternoon, a 93-63 loss to number 12 Purdue at Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland, marking the program's worst loss ever at Xfinity Center. What a nightmare of a season this has become for Maryland, which in the 2025-2026 regular season now is 8-13 overall, including 1-9 in the Big Ten. Maryland does remain without its best player, 6'9" Texas A&M transfer Pharrell Payne. He did not play for a 10th consecutive game due to a right knee injury, but this team is hideous, okay? I mean, this team is so bad. Maryland, in this loss to Purdue on Sunday afternoon, never held a lead. There's no point in breaking down this game. I will note that a bright spot was that two Maryland freshmen in Darius Adams and Andre Mills combined for 35 points. Maybe, hopefully, these guys are building blocks, but of course they could transfer. But 6'5" freshman Darius Adams, a 5-star prospect for 24/7 Sports and Rivals. He in 33 minutes 17 seconds as a starter had 17 points and 6 rebounds. He went 2 for 5 on threes and 3 for 4 on free throws. Did go just 4 for 9 on twos and did have no assists versus 2 turnovers. And 6'4" Texas A&M transfer and redshirt freshman Andre Mills. He in 29-22 as a reserve had 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists versus no turnovers. He went 2 for 4 on threes, 3 for 6 on twos, and 6 for 8 on free throws. We, during the post-game press conference of Maryland head coach Buzz Williams on Sunday afternoon, had this exchange.
Hey, Buzz. Darius and Andre combined for 35 points. Just curious how you've seen them sort of respond to, those typical freshman ups and downs and what stuck out to you with their performances today.
Well, most freshmen, as you know, they at some point they kind of hit a subliminal wall because of all that's transpired with our roster. They haven't had a chance to see that wall, and we can't allow them to feel it either. I give a lot of credit to the coaches. They've done a really good job with those two guys. Those two guys are hungry to learn. I don't think that most freshmen are as accepting of where they are and what they need as D.A. and Dre. I think they have special hearts. I think they're curious in regards to wanting to learn, and their work ethic has continued to improve relative to the physicality and the things that they're learning at a rapid rate through the first 20-ish games. We've been doing more skill stuff exclusively with those two guys in the mornings, and then we're doing a lot of stuff with them post-practice, playing off too. I'm more involved with the post-practice stuff, and then they're much more consistent, not just in their skill work, but also in their basketball IQ, watching, studying it, having better understanding relative to what they're doing, but also to what the opponent's doing. I think D.A. has a knack for getting fouled, and I think both of those guys are improving at playing off two and doing better within playing off 2 feet, whether it's for them or for somebody else. And I think, I don't know how many it was in the second half, but it was much better. I think we were 6 of 8 in the first half from the free throw line, 13 out of 17. As we've talked about, we need to figure out a way to skew our points per possession. Those two guys can do it by getting the defense in rotation. And I thought those two guys, if there was a category without me watching the game, those two guys did a lot of good things specific to that.
Buzz Williams, as you may have noticed, a big analytics person. I like that. I do not like the season that his team is having. The roster that he has put together is not good. Though, in fairness to him, this entire scenario was so messed up. He got put into a tough spot in being hired late in the coaching cycle. Maryland hiring him was not announced until this past April 1st, and he had to rebuild the team off the departure of Maryland head coach Kevin Willard to become Villanova head coach. And speaking of former Maryland head coach, coaches. This loss to Purdue on Sunday afternoon happened on the day on which the University of Missouri-Kansas City, UMKC, announced the hiring of former Maryland head coach Mark Turgeon as Kansas City head coach. Yes, the Turge is back. This is his first head coaching job since he left Maryland. He was Maryland's head coach from May 2011 to December 2021. Maryland on December 3rd, 2021, announced that Turgeon, quote, in a mutual decision, end quote, was stepping down as head coach for the Maryland men's basketball program. Turgeon stepped down a mere 2 days before the Terps' Big Ten opener for the 2021-2022 regular season. That was more than 4 years ago, and now he's back. Turgeon, over his 10 full seasons as Terps head coach, made the NCAA tournament in 5 of the 9 seasons for which there were NCAA tournaments, including 5 of the last 6 seasons for which there were NCAA tournaments, so there was no NCAA tournament for the 2019-2020 season due to COVID. But Turgeon, as Terps head coach, made the Sweet 16 just once, 2016. Turgeon, as Terps head coach, in games against Associated Press top 25 teams, went just 19-41. Turgeon, as Terps head coach, had an overall record in games in March of just 23-24. He, as Maryland head coach, did some good things, but he, as Maryland head coach, had a glaring lack of big wins. Next up for Maryland, home to Ohio State Thursday night at 8:30. Georgetown, the Hoyas. They now have won 3 consecutive games since a 6-game losing streak. Georgetown in this regular season improved to 12-10 overall, including 4-7 in the Big East with a 77-64 win at Butler on Saturday afternoon. This was a good win for the Hoyas. Georgetown held a lead for 33 minutes, 23 seconds of the game's 40 minutes. Georgetown won despite being without a key player in 7-foot New Zealand native Julius Halaifanua due to an undisclosed reason. Also 6'5" Baylor transfer Langston Love. He did not play for a second consecutive game due to an undisclosed reason. But Georgetown's defense was very good. The Hoyas held Butler to just 6 for 21 on threes and just 15 for 42 on twos. The Hoyas held Butler's best player, 6'7" Gonzaga transfer Michael Ajayi, to just 6 points in 35-58 as a starter. He went 0 for 1 on threes, just 2 for 7 on twos, and 2 for 2 on free throws. Georgetown's offense was good. The Hoyas went 10 for 20 on threes, 18 for 31 on twos, and 11 for 14 on free throws, and had 18 assists versus 10 turnovers. 48 of Georgetown's 77 points came from just 3 guys, KJ Lewis, Vince Iwuchukwu, and Malik Mack. 6'4" Arizona transfer KJ Lewis. He in 32-22 as a starter had 17 points, 3 steals, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a game-best tying plus-minus rating of plus 14. He went 3 for 5 on threes, did go just 2 for 4 on twos, and just 4 for 6 on free throws, and did commit 5 turnovers. 7'1" St. John's transfer Vince Iwuchukwu. He in 27-57 as a starter had 17 points and 6 rebounds. He went 1 for 1 on threes, 5 for 8 on twos, and 4 for 4 on free throws. And 6'2" Malik Mack. He in 25-30 as a starter had 14 points and 6 assists versus 1 turnover. He went just 2 for 7 on threes, but also 3 for 5 on twos and 2 for 2 on free throws. So the Hoyas still have a lot of work to do, but they have gone from 1-7 in the Big East to now 4-7 in the Big East. Here was the opening statement of Georgetown head coach Ed Cooley's postgame press conference on Saturday afternoon.
Great Big East game. Obviously, really appreciated all the Butler fans coming out with the weather. You know, I thought our guys were prepared. Ajayi, who I think is one of the top players in our league, we had a lot of agina preparing for him. Tough, multi-positional player, powerful player. But I saw our guys grow up again, you know, sharing the ball back-to-back games where, you know, we prided ourselves on assists, prided ourselves on sharing the ball. And again, you know, just trying to continue to grow and develop. Having Vince back in the lineup for a period of time has really helped us as he, you know, starts the year with 5 games. Then we lose him for 10, now trying to integrate him back in. We had a lot of injuries, losing Langston, losing Julius, you know, that, and, you know, Seal. So we were down to 8 scholarship players today. So really, it's a tribute to the men. It's a tribute to their mental toughness and physical toughness. So I was really, really proud of the group today and fortunate to come away with a road win, as they're hard to get in this league.
All right. right, next up for Georgetown, home to Creighton, Wednesday night at 7:30. I'll talk Virginia, Virginia Tech, George Mason, VCU, and George Washington shortly. But thank you to all of you who have given this podcast a 5-star rating and to have written nice reviews of the podcast. You on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify can both rate the podcast and write reviews. 5-star ratings are very much appreciated. Positive reviews are very much appreciated. All right, more now on our college basketball weekend. Another road win for number 17 Virginia. It in the 2025-2026 regular season improved to 18-3 overall, including 7-2 in the ACC, with a 73-66 win at Boston College on Saturday afternoon. UVA in the first half trailed by 7 points at 28-21. The Cavaliers then won the rest of the game 52-38. Now, UVA's defense was mixed. The Cavs held BC to just 3 for 13 on threes, but allowed BC to go 21 for 38 on twos and have 26 free throw attempts. But BC went just 15 for 26 on free throws. Also, UVA's offense was not good. The Wahoos went just 4 for 23 on threes and just 13 for 18 on free throws, and total just 9 assists. However, the Hoos did go 24 for 41 on twos and committed just 7 turnovers. So UVA's leading scorer was 6'9" Belgian true freshman Testa Ritter. He in 28-55 as a starter had 17 points and 5 rebounds. He went 0 for 1 on threes, 7 for 9 on twos, and 3 for 4 on free throws. So the Hoos being 7-2 in the ACC includes them being 5-1 in ACC road games. Yes, 6 of the Hoos' 9 ACC games have been road games, and the record in those games is 5-1. And the one loss was a triple overtime loss, a 95-85 triple overtime loss at Virginia Tech on December 31st. We joined the postgame press conference of UVA head coach Ryan Odom on Saturday afternoon. Had this exchange between Jeff White, director of news content for VirginiaSports.com, and Odom.
6 of the first 9 conference games were on the road. You knew,
yeah.
On the schedule, you knew that would come. You're 5-1 with 1 loss in triple overtime. How do you think your guys have handled it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to complain, winning that many games on the road. It's not easy to win on the road. It doesn't matter what league you're in. It's difficult. And so we can't pat ourselves on the back. There's more road games to come. There's more. We've got to be good at home. And, it's a tough conference this year. It's much improved from a year ago. And so we've got to be ready every game.
Well, next up for Virginia, an actual home game, home to Pitt Tuesday night at 9. Virginia Tech made a run, but ultimately came up short. The Hokies in this regular season fell to 16-7 overall, including 5-5 in the ACC, with a 72-58 loss to number 4 Duke at Castle Coliseum in Blacksburg, Virginia on Saturday afternoon. Tech cut a 16-point first-half deficit to 6 points in the second half at 62-56, but then lost the rest of the game 10-2. Tech held Duke to just 5 for 21 on threes and just 7 free throw attempts, of which Duke made 5. But the Hokies allowed Duke to go 26 for 38 on twos and getting outscored in the paint 46-24. And a big part of that was Duke's best player, 6'9" true freshman Cameron Boozer, the twin brother of fellow Duke true freshman Caden Boozer. And they are the sons of former Duke and former NBA star Carlos Boozer. Cameron Boozer in 37-26 as a starter had 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. He went 2 for 3 on threes, 7 for 9 on twos, and 4 for 5 on free throws. Did commit 4 turnovers. Tech went just 7 for 26 on threes and had just 6 free throw attempts, of which the Hokies made 5. Did go 16 for 29 on twos. Tech's leading scorer was 6'8" West Virginia transfer Amani Hansberry. He in 37-07 as a starter had 20 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists versus 1 turnover. He went 4 for 5 on threes. Did go just 4 for 8 on twos and did not attempt a free throw. Also, Tech remained without 6'5" Tyler Johnson. He did not play for a 10th consecutive game due to a left ankle injury. Next up for Virginia Tech at NC State Saturday afternoon at 1:30. And we in the A-10 over the weekend had wins for George Mason and VCU, but a loss for George Washington. We had significant comeback wins for George Mason and VCU. George Mason in this regular season improved to 20-2 overall, including 8-1 in the A-10, with a 77-73 win at St. Bonaventure on Saturday evening. The Patriots overcame a 14-point first-half deficit. Andover came being down by 13 points with less than 7 minutes left in the second half. St. Bonaventure came into the game with an A-10 record for this regular season of just 2-6, but Mason for this game was just a 1.5-point favorite per multiple outlets. The Sharps, the smart guys, they detected that something was up, and they were right, but Mason did win by 4. Next up for George Mason, home to Duquesne Wednesday night at 7. VCU, in this regular season, improved to 16-6 overall, including 7-2 in the A-10, with an 89-75 win over Loyola Chicago at the Stuart C. Siegel Center in Richmond, Virginia, late night on Friday night. The Rams overcame a 15-point first-half deficit against a Loyola Chicago team that came into the game with an overall record for this regular season of just 5-17. Understand, VCU for this game was an 18.5-point favorite per multiple outlets. The Rams were down by 15 points in the first half, was rather bad, but VCU won. Next up for VCU at Fordham Tuesday night at 7. And George Washington in this regular season fell to 13-9 overall, including 4-5 in the A-10, with a 79-65 loss to Fordham at the Charles E. Smith Center in Washington, D.C. on Saturday afternoon. The Colonials in the first half held a 4-point lead at 23-19, but then lost the rest of the game 60-42. Next up for George Washington at St. Joseph's Wednesday night at 7. The top 5 teams in Division I men's basketball in the Mid-Atlantic region per KenPom.com for this regular season as of games through Saturday. Virginia at number 18, VCU at number 47, Virginia Tech at number 60, George Mason at number 75, and George Washington at number 78. Yeah, 3 of the 5 teams were A-10 teams. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Tuesday's show, episode 1252. We'll have plenty for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Tuesday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals. The Caps are home to the New York Islanders Monday night at 7. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Let's not make folks wait. Let's not drag it out, Jason. What is the new team name?
Doug, what is it?
We are the Commanders.
We are the Commanders.
The Commanders. The Washington Commanders.
That's right.
Oh, wow. You didn't waste any time there.
There it is.